Okay, all right. So this week's stuff, it's really just middle school stuff, but it's presented in a little bit fancier way. This week's stuff, it's all about fractions. Okay, you'll learn about adding fractions, subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions, dividing fractions. So today we'll focus on a very simple topic, which is just multiplying and dividing fractions. Now, this week would also be the time that you reinforce the little things that you learned about fractions. Like, when do we need common denominator? When do we not need a common denominator? When can we cancel out stuff? And when do we not cancel out stuff? Okay. All right, so this is the time to make sure that everything is done properly. Now, and here's one more thing, by the way. Do you know that, how about this? Let me give you this question, okay? What is 0 divided by 5 and 5 divided by 0? All right, what is 0 divided by 5? 0. What is 5 divided by 0? It is not 0. It is undefined. All right, now, it took me a long time to realize what's going on, but it's more of a memorization thing at the end to me at that time. So I was like, okay, 0 divided by 5, you have nothing to divide by 5, so you got nothing at the end. All right, that makes sense. But then I was like, 5 divided by 0, well, if you have 5 things and you're not dividing it at all, so why is it undefined? So it takes me a long time to realize how this is undefined. And I'm going to tell you that you want to keep this little nugget in your head, okay? Why? Now, let me ask you this. Do you know what this number is equal to? 5 divided by 0.001. Do you think it's going to be a big number, or do you think it's going to be a small number? How many of you think it's a small number? All right, how many of you think that it's a big number? Okay, what makes it a big number? Okay, so if you think about the regular way of thinking of division, you're thinking about how many times this is going to here, right? So, well, 0.001, it's a small number, so it's going to be a lot of times. So, if you put into a calculator just to verify what it is, so 5 divided by 0.001, and you get 5,000. Okay, 5,000. Now, what I'm going to do, it's going to be a little bit philosophical, but I believe that everyone should be capable of thinking about it. So what about 5 divided by negative 0.001? Ooh, yes, it's going to be negative 5,000. So far, so good? So far, so good? Yes. What do you mean? Show us how to solve it without the calculator. So the way you can solve it without a calculator, you can think about this as 5 over 1 over 1,000. So what we learn about division, this is what we learn about division, right? So if we have division of a fraction, what do? You change the division to multiplication, right? And then you will do the reciprocal, and that's how you get 5,000. Okay? All right, now. So this is the philosophical part. When we say 5 divided by 0, are we sure that it is exactly 0? Or could it be a number that is just so small that we round it to 0? And if it's so small, and what you can see from these two examples right here is that if you are going slightly to the right-hand side of 0, you get a gigantic positive number. But what if you have a number that's slightly to the left of 0, you have a negative gigantic number. So now what about dead on 0? We're like, I don't know. Because we don't know if it's going to be a big number on the positive side or a big number on the negative side. So we have a hard time answering this question. So that's why we say undefined. All right. So now you may want to look at this video again at home to, digest this idea again. But this is where math gets a little bit more fun, in my opinion, is that when you see number 0, you think about, wait, hold on. What if it is slightly to the left or slightly to the right, left and right of 0? Does that give you a consistent answer? And you realize that the answers are pretty polarized. So it's not really a continuum. And that becomes a problem. Okay? All right, now. So that's the reason why we are going to see something called a domain restriction. We're going to see something called domain restriction because we do not want to divide by 0. If it's divided by 0, that's going to be undefined. That's going to be undefined. Okay. So we'll see some cases right here. Okay, how we are not going to see cases where it's going to be undefined. Okay. But today, again, we are going to only talk about multiplying and dividing fractions. And by the way, we have a word right here. Rational. Took me more than 10 years to realize what that word means in math. And it is ratio. It's related to ratio. Because I thought, like, I know what rational means, like, not crazy, logical, all right? Not emotional, that's rational, right? And I didn't know until one day, somehow I cover the last 3 letters of the word, and I was like, oh, that's the reason why we call it rational expression, because they are ratios. 10 years, at least 10 years. All right, now, here's another thing I want to keep you reminded here. You always simplify before multiply, okay? You always simplify before you multiply. Like, for example, if you look at the little fraction right here, what you should do, it's not multiplying across yet. Not yet. We'll do it when it's simplified. So you want to simplify the numbers. All right. Again, the way you simplify numbers would be based on the fact that they can divide each other. Okay, numerator and denominators. They can divide each other, and you can simplify them. It's like 6 over 4. 6 over 8 becomes 3 over 4. Before you multiply, I'm sorry, before multiplying. Because if you multiply then simplify, you are handling some big numbers, and that's usually very ugly. And then what you can do, 3 and the 9, they can cancel each other. So we have 1 and 3. 3 and the 15, they can cancel each other. So you have 5 and 1. So ultimately, you don't need to multiply anything because the left fraction is just 1 and 1. The right fraction is 5 and 4 in the numerator and denominator respectively. Therefore, it's just 5 quarters. So simplify before multiply. Okay.
How did the 3 on top of that 1?
The 3 and the 9, they simplify each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so make sure you are keeping track of your simplification so that you don't lose track. And of course, back in middle school, as I mentioned before, if you divide by a fraction, it turns into a multiplication of the reciprocal. And again, you can simplify first. 4 and 20 becomes 1 and 5. 5 and 5 becomes 1 and 1. So ultimately, you have just 1/2. Okay. Again, let me go back again. 4 and 20 becomes 1 and 5. 5 and 5, they become 1 and 1. So ultimately, it's just 1/2. Okay. So that's just, middle school stuff. Do we need common denominator? Not for multiplication and division. Okay. We need common denominator for addition and subtraction because, well, we have to add and subtract on the same basis. But for multiplying and dividing, not needed. Okay.
So when you multiply, when you flip the multiplying, with
Reciprocal. We will have the reciprocal after the division sign. So again, nothing new. Nothing new. Okay.